you know, we always say this is probably the only free thing that is on Nantucket. And the team and I work year-round to ensure that stays so. But we couldn't do it without our sponsors. And I just want to thank Richie Battle, Randy and Lisa Cohn, Ellen and Linwood Dame, Elizabeth Galvin, Mary and Robert Haft, Adam and Ramona Nee, Nancy Seaman and Alan Schwartz, Beth Wilkinson and David Gregory, and our top sponsors, the White Elephant and the Boston Globe. We literally couldn't do it and keep it free for all of you without them. So a huge, huge thank you to them. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I am so excited to welcome Lara Zigman to the stage. Lara is the author of Small World, a New York Times group text pick, An Editor's Choice, Separation Anxiety, Animal Husbandry, which was made into the movie Someone Like You, starring Hugh Jackman and Ashley Judd, and also Greg Kinnear. And you guys, I freaking love that movie. It is so fun. When Ashley does her cheerleading scene, I literally like rewind and rewatch it. It's so good. Dating Big Bird, Her, and Piece of Work. Lara has also collaborated on several works of nonfiction, including Eddie Izzard's New York Times bestseller, Believe Me, and she's been a contributor to the New York Times and other publications. This is her 7th novel, The Author Weekend. Lara, welcome to the Nantucket Book Festival.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I am so excited to talk with you about this book, which I have been devouring because I love to laugh, and I am laughing so much. Lara, it is so funny, and it is funny in the way that is best, which is informed about the publishing industry, about jealousy, about frenemies. We have so much to talk about. And I just want to say, everybody, you're going to buy a copy of the book because you're going to want to buy a copy of the book. So get that in your head right now. Everyone's buying one. And I want to give you the story behind the story. I want to give you what you can't get on the page. So Lara, tell us about the moment that you first decided to write this book.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for having me. Obviously, it's complete fiction. I have no frenemies. I have no issues with the publishing industry, so I just made everything up. But actually, it was a truly cathartic experience that came 3 years ago, almost exactly. I had published Small World in 2023 and felt very happy about it. And then when I went to try to sell my next novel, it was rejected. And through like many rejections after that, something else happened that was very depressingly career-related that didn't work out. And after that thing didn't work out, I just took to my bed. And I really was I was like, it's enough. You know, I need to find another kind of work. And I took to my bed and I was doom scrolling the way I do when I take to my bed. And I was doom scrolling, laying flat down, and it was a Friday night, right around now, and somebody was having an author weekend, an author-related weekend, like a fan kind of weekend. And it was really a little bit cringe. And I just got so much pleasure from it. It was better than any antidepressant I could have possibly been on. And I suddenly felt myself coming alive the way I do when I take pleasure in something like that. And it was such a publishing thing, because I just was like, oh, this is so awkward to watch these posts coming, and I just thought, oh, this is a bad novel. I mean, this is a novel about a bad, cringy thing. And my agent said, yes, it is, and you should write about it. And she sort of gave me the idea, and I rose, and then I had a purely cathartic, could not stop writing experience. It'll probably never happen again, but.
Yes, exactly. With the strength of 1,000 suns, you were resurrected. You were called to write this book, and you have written it for us, Lara, and it is breathing new life into me. So, and soon to all of you. So thank you. So what I love about this book is it is about an author whose sales are slipping just a little, she's quick to tell you. And so she decides to have a author retreat on it turns out, a very real place called Misery Island, which there's Great Misery and Little Misery Islands. I had to look it up to make sure it's real. It is real. Lara, you can't make this stuff up. It's so hilarious and so funny. Did you know you immediately had to set it on Misery Island?
No, I knew that it was going to be a miserable author weekend, and I like facts, and I like to look at maps and everything. So when I thought, like, well, it's going to be in New England, where would it be? And it would be in Massachusetts. The writer, fictional writer in the book, Faye Waiter, is 60, and her, like you said, her sales are slipping. And she doesn't like people, just a little. And she doesn't like people, and she shouldn't be with people, so it's a big mistake. So I knew it was going to be bad, but she lives on the North Shore of Massachusetts, and I just did a Google Maps thing, and I couldn't believe that there were these two islands called, and I thought, oh, you can't really make this up. And if you made it up, they would say you made it anyway. So, but I love that the names were that, because I knew that it was going to be just a nonstop disaster from the beginning.
Well, what I love about this book, aside from everything, is that it is multiple points of view. So at first we're hearing from Faye, and you're seeing the world from Faye's point of view. Her, let's be honest, a bit curmudgeonly, very New England, fleece vest wearing point of view. You know New England so well. You do New England so well. And then we're seeing how she feels about her assistant Jade, who's 30. But then we get to be in Jade's perspective, seeing how Jade feels about Faye. And then we get to be in her, and she's, why hasn't my agent gotten back to me? Why hasn't the editor gotten back to me? And I'm thinking, my God, why haven't they? Well, then we get to know, because we get to go into Mary's point of view and Hal's point of view. And Laura, what I love about this is that you actually know, because you've worked in the publishing industry. Tell us about that.
So I worked in book publishing. I worked for Random House from 1985. I'm very comfortable here, because usually when I say I worked in publishing in 1985, nobody even has heard of 1985. So I feel very comfortable. Most of us were alive in 1985. So I was working in 1985 for Random House from 1985 until 1995. So it was 10 years. And I was a book publicist for Knopf, which was the jewel in the crown of Random House at the time. And publishing was like very different than it is now in many ways. And so I had a real insider's knowledge of the business, what it was like to work in the business, and how difficult authors could be. Then I became an author, and I was like, wait a minute, I have to recalibrate. But so I know I've been sort of every person. I've been an assistant traveling with a really difficult authors, famous authors. I've been an author myself, who can sometimes be difficult, and I've had multiple agents and editors who all have their own issues. They need to stay employed also. So there's a lot going on behind.
But what I think is so fun, as a reader, what I love and is to play with how we see ourselves versus how others see us. And so it's so fun to see how all of these people view themselves and then how others view them. Because, of course, as an author, we're thinking, why hasn't this person gotten back to me? Or, oh my gosh, and then you actually get to see why they haven't gotten back to us. Yeah. And Zoe, the publicist, who's so busy updating her cat account, she dresses her cat up, this fluff life. And Laura, it's just so fun, and it's so funny.
Thank you.
And I think it's hard to write humor on the page, but it's because it's hard to be
funny. Black humor is really easy to write, because there's so much of it that, like The Publicist is based on sort of based on the publicist I had for my last book, who was always just could never get back. It was too busy. I've been a publicist, so I know it's a really hard job, totally. But then I was like, I see you on Instagram with your cat. And it wasn't in a stroller, but she was all over Brooklyn with her cat. And I was like, okay, it's fine, but please don't, we live now in a time where I see you. You can see now you lied, and now I'm annoyed. So, but to your point of Faye Waiter being a 60-year-old writer trying to stay relevant and wanting to do this author weekend and wanting to do it her way, and if she had her way, it would be beer and fried clams and LL Bean clothes and all that. But her publisher is like, we need to elevate this to the fancy thing. And it's Prosecco and yoga classes and all the stuff that Faye Waiter would never do. So right off the bat, they're trying to change, who she is.
And she's not going to go gently into that elevated experience. And I think also, whether you're in the publishing industry or not, we all see sort of these yoga retreats or these meditation retreats, and on one hand you're like, oh, that's so nice, and on another hand, at least I'm like, give me a freaking break, lady. And so I love that you take a very insightful and very funny and irreverent look at retreat culture. Laura, do you have a favorite character in this? I know who mine is.
I feel like I had never written I don't want to give anything away, a book where somebody died in it on purpose. So that was new. I don't know if it's called, I don't know, this is not a thriller. I don't really know what it is. It's just a novel where a person or maybe more die. So I'd never done that before, so that was a real departure for me. And I'd never done multiple personalities. I've never done that either, but I've never done multiple perspectives. And I just thought, I'm just gonna try this. It probably won't get published because of what I had just been through. And I just had fun doing it, and I think that my favorite character really was Faye, because I relate mostly to her age-wise, but I also felt like Jade, who is 30. Jade is 30, has graduated from the Iowa Writers Workshop, and she pronounces literally. And that's really all you need to know about Jade. But Jade is very pretentious, and Jade feels very superior to Faye, who writes these commercial suspense novels. And Jade is sort of like, I'm a literary writer, and I am deigning to work for this, kind of commercial grossness of it. But she's never written anything, and so Faye is really like, oh, if you're so literary, why don't you write something? But Faye really does want to help her kind of realize her ambitions.
And that was another thing that I love that you did, because there is, within this industry, I don't know if you guys as readers find this as well, this literary snobbishness about both writers who say, oh, I write. I mean, we have frenemies that will have said to us, oh, I would never write a mystery. I write literary. And meanwhile, I'm thinking like, I only write mysteries, And so seeing that on the page I was like, oh, living for this. That you took a hard look at that. So I just loved it. What did one of the perspectives? Okay, wait. So did you then sit down, because all of your other books have had just the one point of view and a deep interiority where you feel you're in that person's perspective. So and I loved the multiple POVs. Did you sit down and say, okay, I'm just going to do Faye and Jade, the author and her assistant, and then more surprised you, or you were like, I'm going to write these? And how did you approach that?
I started to. I think I had maybe 6 or 7, and then I cut back to just 4. I may have had the cat at one point. Actually, I'm working on a sequel, and the cat is a point of view in the sequel. But it turned out to be 4 were really good, and I felt so. I love the book business. I love the people in the book industry, and book people. It's sort of a love letter, oddly enough, even though it's full of complaining about it. I really love the industry, and I love the people in it, because we're the book people in it, and it's more the corporate overlords that have destroyed it. So I felt like it would have been very easy to just write a novel that complained about publishing, but I really wanted to give those 4 perspectives, because my agent doesn't have it easy. Editors now in publishing, if they don't sign up and acquire best-selling novels, they'll get fired. And so no one has it easy, really, except the cat. The cat has it really easy, but aside from that.
Hashtag this fluff life. Yeah, exactly. The cat does have it easy, but for the rest of us, right? Exactly, because when you go in to marry the editor's perspectives, you see how much pressure she's under, and she's like, "Oh gosh, how am I going to get this book? This next book, which is a departure for Faye's style. How am I going to get this published? How's this going to work?"
And that whole departure thing is, they always say to you, or if they say to you, if your books don't sell as well as they want them to, they say, well, we can't sell, and then you try something different, and they go, yeah, we really want what you did before, and then but you didn't want that either. So it's very hard. So Faye is trying to do something different with her 15th book, and when she doesn't hear back from her editor and her agent, she knows that it's not going to be good news, and it's not going to be good news.
So you identify with Faye the most. Mm-hmm. Was Jade therefore the hardest for you to write, or were Hal her agent or Mary her editor, or did they all just flow?
They all kind of flowed. I think Jade, because I was a publicist and I did travel, one of the worst people I ever traveled with as a publicist, and she's dead, so I can talk about it, but it was Lauren Bacall.
I'm
And
settling
so,
in.
yeah,
I'm ready.
yeah, so I traveled with Lauren Bacall, among many others, but she was really the worst, in the mid-90s. And I was supposed to go for 4 full weeks, and I could only stand it for 3 weeks and 4 days. So that was a great inspiration for knowing how difficult, that's a very high level of someone who's essentially abusive. I mean, it's funny, but it wasn't really funny when she was yelling at every service person and me also. But that gave me a real, it's all about ego, and it's all about the narcissistic wound of someone who was once famous and who walks into places. I mean, we would walk into places back then, and she would be ignored, and she would actually say, "Don't you know who I am?" And the person behind the counter would say, "Actually, I don't," because they were young. And so that was if you're a movie star and you once were famous, you can have compassion for what they're going through, except that they're sometimes so awful that you really can't have that much compassion.
I like that it was 3 weeks and 4 days, and maybe like 12 hours and 4 minutes.
I have it down somewhere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I like that you referenced the narcissistic wound, because another thing that you do is help writers through their troubles with, so Laura's last name is obviously Zigman, so she has a business, Zigman Freud, which I think is the cutest, helping other writers who are maybe struggling to feeling creatively blocked, or feeling the weight of rejection or the terror of rejection and can't move through that. And with your very gentle and compassionate and grounded, loving nature, are able to help them along the way. Tell us about that.
Sweet. Thank you. I, was in publishing, and then I wrote 4 novels, and I thought, when you're starting out in life, I think you think all you need to do is just get that thing going, and then you don't realize it's not necessarily going to last. And so after 4 books, it wasn't going that well. My career wasn't going that well, and then a lot was going on at home with my family. A lot of people got sick. I got sick. A lot of stuff happened, and I just couldn't write. I had very bad writer's block, and so I turned to ghostwriting because I couldn't come up with my own stuff, and I was the breadwinner, and so I was able to earn a living through ghostwriting, which I actually enjoyed to a point. Some of that stuff was really good, but I had writer's block, and I had a very long period between my 4th novel, which was published in 2006, and Separation Anxiety, which was published in March 3rd, 2020, which was perfect timing for the pandemic. What a time to publish a novel after 14 years or whatever. But, so I really understood writer's block and the frustration of that. And so, to make an even longer story short, during COVID, I started to do sessions online. I called it writing therapy, because I'm not a therapist, but I understand a lot of that publishing stuff and writing stuff. And one of the things that put me into my bed that summer when I started to doom scroll and saw the author weekend happening was that the New York Times was going to do a profile of me for the writing therapy that I did. And they had interviewed me and interviewed my clients and taken my picture. The whole piece was filed and written, and they killed it because it had turned out that I had forgotten I had blurbed the journalist's memoir maybe 10 or 12 years prior, and I had forgotten. And we blurb a lot of books. Writers blurb a lot of books. So anyway, they killed the piece, and that was what I thought, that now I'll never have to write another book. I'll be a writing therapist because I'll be in the New York Times, and I'll have clients for the rest of my life. And when that piece got killed, I was like, that's it. So then I wrote this.
So the blurb is the review from the other authors that goes on the cover of the book. And so the irony of that is that Laura had done this kindness for this other author. She had read her book, she had taken the time to read it and to think deeply about it and to write her this beautiful blurb as this incredible, service for which authors do for other authors. But then that ended up being the person who was writing the New York Times article, and she said, well, now I can't have you in the New York Times because there's a conflict of interest. So Laura's act of kindness backfired her in a tragic, no good deed goes unpunished kind of way.
But the only good thing is that the reporter sold the piece to another place called Airmail, and then the headline writer for Airmail said Zigmund Freud, which I had never thought of. So it's like something good came. A silver lining.
A window.
A window.
Okay, so as you were writing, so as a former publicist, writing Zoe's not a perspective, but we see her in the, Instagramming her cat to this fluff life, putting him in adorable little outfits, and then pretending to work, which is something that and I loved that you said that was drawn from your own life, where
I also pretend to work. I mean, I don't have a cat in a bedazzled stroller, but I am often pretending to work. But that's why I could write it.
You're a dog person, Laura.
I am a dog person.
And actually, you thanked your dog in the acknowledgments, lady, which I thought was so beautiful, because you said she sat with you through all of it.
Yeah, I lost my 16-and-a-half-year-old Sheltie last summer. So she was on the cover of Separation Anxiety, which is about a woman who can't afford to get divorced, so they have to stay together. And she wears her dog in a baby sling, and the cover has Lady, a painting of the character and my dog, and it's on the spine. So.
And now Lady gets to be inside this book, in the acknowledgments. Yeah. So Zigmund Freud, as a publishing industry veteran, both on the inside as a former publicist and now as an author, do the words, you said these perspectives flowed, do the words always flow, and what do you do when they don't?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, the hardest part, well, it's always, there's all sorts of hard parts to writing the books that we write, and I think the hardest part usually is the beginning, is trying to get the voice, or you have a story, and then you need the voice. This is different voices, but usually it's just a single voice. But, once I got going on this one, I'm actually into the next one, like I said, because it is just so cathartic. But usually it's hard. It's hard to get the story. I always say that I went on a whale watch, and I can't go. I've never been on a boat since. I went on a boat in 1985, a whale watch out of Hyannis, and it was like Moby Dick. And I was stuck on this whale watch for 4 solid hours. And I always think about this in various times of life, because I think the boat made these two different motions. The boat, I'm getting seasick now, just describing the motions at but the chug, chug, chug to find the whale, which is just really would make me sick. And then you sat and then you watched the whale, also bad. So every time the boat was moving, I was like, please stop, and then it would stop. I'd say, please move. So that's kind of like writing. It's like, it's hard when you're not writing, it's hard when you are writing, it's hard at the beginning, it's hard at the end. So it just is always until you're done. And then you get sad, because you're done. And then you lived in that world, and you could escape in that world, and now you can't. And now you have to do it again. And so it's, never happy, but.
I love that analogy, because it is hard. Yeah, because when I invited Laura to join us here today, I was like, wait, how is she going to get over here? Because boats and planes, both an issue. I was
a problem, so I swam, yeah.
I was like, let's FedEx her some Dramamine and get her on over here.
It worked.
So thank you for getting on getting on that flight and coming to join us.
Sure.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, and then we're going to go into questions. Laura, when readers finish this novel, what conversation do you hope continues after they close the book?
That's a really good question. I think I wanted people to understand Faye. I think, women of a certain age, it's not easy. It's not easy for anyone right now. It's not easy. Life is not easy in the world. I mean, but I'm just speaking for this little piece of what's not easy is, when you're a female writer, you are expected to have likable characters and likable plots. And I was just watching something before I came here I can never remember the author's name, but she wrote Yesteryear, which is the big book that everyone's talking about. And I was like, yes. But it's all this thing when you're a female writer, you're held to a different standard. If you deviate, but you're doing something else. Or if your character is unlikable, and there are parts of Faye that are unlikable. And that's, no one says that about male characters. Nobody ever really looks at a TV series and says Breaking Bad and says, Walter White, really? He's so unlikable. No, everyone's fascinated with Walter White because it's Breaking Bad and it's brilliant. But if you are a female writer and you're trying to write or be a person that isn't necessarily likable, it's up for conversation. And so I think that's a real challenge. And I just wanted people to understand, what people will do to stay relevant or to stay, you know, she goes into that author weekend wanting more love. She wants what her nemesis has, and her nemesis has these amazing author weekends because her nemesis is like very charming and charismatic and should be around people, and Faye shouldn't be around people. So she goes into it really wanting love, like she wants the love, and then by the middle of the weekend, all she wants is to keep what she has. Like, and it's not necessarily gonna be possible because certain things happen. But.
That's so interesting about what you said about the male characters writing, male writers writing male characters that are not held to the likability standard, not even a topic of conversation, not even something anyone thinks of. And because I think I found Faye very likable, and is everything about her perfect? No. Is everything about, I mean, I liked all of them. I care deeply about all of these people because you make us care about them. Like, you know, every single one of these characters I would want to meet, I would want to have dinner with, I would want to talk to them about their lives. But none of us are entirely likable. We all have things that are not, you know, annoying or unlikable about us. And but I think the reason that so-called unlikable characters are likable in the world of Laura Zigman is because there is a depth of compassion and humanity that you see people through, and that comes through on the page.
Oh, that's really nice. I mean, I am very curious about people, and I do usually find, I will say usually, not always, but usually find something really interesting about anyone that I meet. And that often, if you're dealing with difficult people, you will find the core of them and what it is that makes them difficult. And almost always you can still like them anyway because you understand why they do what they do. And I would hope that people would understand when I am difficult what drives me too. But you know, I think also I wanted people, especially in this here, is like we are all readers, and it's really, to me, very interesting to think about the people who are writing the books and what they go through when they're doing it. So that's part of what I hope you take with you.
I think I have time for one more question because Laura, an ex-publicist, is so good at delivering tight, juicy sound bites that she's not a rambler, which I also love a rambler. But Laura, I just was thinking about how many readers and myself discovered your work, you know, decades ago, even with Animal Husbandry, which I loved, and have followed you through several literary eras and different types of books. And Separation Anxiety, Small World, these, the Author Weekend, 3 very different books. What do you think has remained constant in your writing voice, and what do you think has changed the most?
You know, that's another good question. I think, you know, I would hope that the humor and the sort of soft, gooey core are the through lines, but I think in my last, I won't include this because this is very different from Separation Anxiety and Small World, but I do think that when I was, you know, had writer's block and I didn't publish for 14 years, you know, that kind of breaks you in a way where when I wrote Separation Anxiety and then Small World, I was less concerned with the jokes, and I was much, you know, it makes you tender, you know, when you have a lot of loss and you go through a lot, and we all have in some way. And so it became much more about really wanting to kind of go into that stuff more than just the flat, I mean, there are jokes, but, you know, that depth of experience, so, yeah.
Well, I think both of those things are in this book, that Laura Zigman humor that I love so much, and also the tenderness of the humanity of each of these characters, likable and tender.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited for everyone to get to read it. And now, you know, we're here to have conversations. It's the worst when a moderator is up there, you know, just blah, blah, blah. You're like, shut your pie hole, lady. I got questions. So I will shut my pie hole and open it up to your questions now. What would you like to ask this incredible author?
The characters that were least like you, how did you figure out how to write their perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for instance, the agent is a, you know, gay man who has been Faye's agent for her entire career. And they started out together, and same with her editor. They were all together. They all kind of came up. Faye was older than her editor and her agent. They were both much younger, but they kind of rode her career. They were all together throughout the whole arc of her career, her success. And so it made them really close. I had an agent, my first agent was 25 when I met him. I was 10 years older than him. And he was one of my closest friends. And so it ended, I can say this because he's written memoirs about it, but he had a drug problem. And he left the business for a while, and his name is Bill Clegg, and he was a fantastic agent to me, and he is now a very successful agent still. But that was such a loss for me. We were really close friends, and he was like my creative partner, and suddenly he was gone, and I had no idea that he had a problem. Nobody did. And then he was gone, and then he was really, gone for me for a long time. We're friends now, but so I wrote that into Hal because, there's going to be a point where there's going to split, and it's really a loss. I don't know. A lot of people and their agents have a really close relationship, and it's different than your friends, and it's different than your writer friends, and it's different than if you have a spouse or a partner. And so I was able I felt like that was like a kind of a love letter to him because he was so important to me.
I love Hal. Who else has questions for Lara? It's so fun to be here all together. I see my bridge buddies. Hi, bridge buddies. And
Your bridge buddies.
My yoga students from Boston. Hi, Andrea. So exciting.
You mentioned being a ghostwriter.
Yes.
Is there a book there?
Is there a book in the ghostwriting? I do think so. I think people have written books about ghostwriting. Ghostwriting is really, really interesting. It depends who you're writing for, and it depends. But I started doing it. I did it for Martha Stewart's daughter, which was interesting. And then I wrote a book for a television matchmaker who was on A&E, and that was super interesting. Period. And then I wrote a book for Wendy Davis, who was the Texas state senator, who had filibustered in her pink sneakers for Planned Parenthood, and she was amazing. She was just the most amazing person. And I also wrote a book for Eddie Izzard, who's he's an actor. He's a performer. He is now a she, and that was an incredible experience, especially with Wendy and Eddie, who is now Susie. When you write a book for someone, they trust you with their life, and it's a very weird experience for them. You turn on the tape recorder and then they start talking, and it's a little awkward for them. It's hard for them, and you have to get the hardest part. I always say that the easy part is writing. The hardest part is like to get the stories out of them. That they haven't told People magazine, because a lot of times, not those two, but a lot of times I worked with a celebrity. I don't normally do like a pure celebrity book. And, you do all the reading, you research them, and you go into your first couple sessions, kind of know everything about them. And when they start to give you it's like, oh, I read that in People. Oh, you said that in People. You said that and that, And so you have to really get them past the stuff they've always told everyone else. And that's a skill where you have to get to the whole, and every person has a wound and a hole, and it all comes from there. Once you get there, and they cry. I was just working with someone a couple weeks ago, and I was like, someone said, how'd it go? I was like, oh, he cried 3 times. I think it was very successful. But when I worked with Wendy Davis, at the end of it, she said to me, you know me better than anyone, because she told me so much that you don't tell, everyone usually all the stuff from your childhood and everything like that. So it can be a great experience. It can also be horrible, but I've been lucky. I've had mostly great experiences.
So you work every day to make people cry.
You have
that's
to.
Your thing.
That's the mission. Make them cry.
Yeah,
at least once. Yeah.
I was thinking #show me your hole, but no, that's not good. Okay. Okay, more questions for Lara. Right down here. In this, okay. Oh, do we have one over there? Okay, down here, center. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking the Dramamine and
anytime.
making your way here. This has been great. I was lucky to have an advanced listening copy of your book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh,
Let me tell
good.
you, I was laughing. It was just so much fun. I love the multiple perspectives. Do you think you will tackle multiple perspectives in a future book?
Oh,
Or do you?
I feel like that's a plant of a question. So I am about a third. Thank you, first of all. I haven't listened to the audiobook, but I hear it's really good. I'm about a third of the way into a sequel to this called The Blurb. And The Blurb was inspired by, I was getting blurbs for this book. And I had my good friend Alice Hoffman gave me a blurb, the gift right here. And my other friend Ann Leary gave me a blurb and blah, blah, blah. And then I had to get some blurbs from people that people didn't know that were my friends. So I actually went to somebody who I had given a blurb to. And I had done several events for her, and great. She has a big name and everything. And the blurb, she emailed me the blurb, and it was a weekend in January. And I read the blurb, and I was like, it's not that good. It's not that good. It's not as good as the blurb I gave her. And I was just like, tweaked. And so I took a screenshot, and I texted another author friend of mine, and I said, not Ann Leary, and I said, I just have to run this past you. Like, can you just check me? Is this blurb, and can you just read this? I'm not going to tell you who wrote it, but can you just tell me, is this blurb underwhelming? And she read it, and she goes, yeah, it is. It's a really annoying blurb. She said, it reminds me of the blurb that XYZ gave me. And I said, actually, it's the same person. And I was like, I was like a little thunderbolt. I was like, okay, now I have my next book called The Blurb, which is, and believe me, I am a small person. To have gotten the gift of a blurb, she wrote it for me. Okay, it wasn't that great, but it wasn't terrible. But I am a very small person to think is this blurb good enough? So I count myself in this whole ecosystem of this stuff. And so I just saw the black humor in it. So I already have my little plot that involves a forensic linguist who is going to be able to tell that a blurb has been faked. So I just think, I could be writing these dark publishing novels for the rest of my life because there's so much material. Don't you think?
I love this idea so much. I'm already cackling with glee, and I'm looking out at Greer and others in the audience because it's so hard to ask for blurbs. You have to crawl on your hands with your hands up. Please, sir, may I have a blurb? And they're like.
But I would like to say, one of the best parts of this whole writing and book community is when I was having trouble even selling this one. I was at a writing festival that Alice Hoffman started at Adelphi University, and I was there that week, and I was getting multiple rejections were coming in my phone. It was awful. And I was with Alice, Ann Leary, and my friend Mona Awad, and they all looked at me and they go, what can we do? And they were like, we're going to give you blurbs. And they didn't give me the blurbs at the table, but they went home and by the end of the weekend gave me blurbs. And that is that will make up for all the rejections, but but that's what we do for each other, I think, and that's the part that makes this world so lovely is this, and also the relationships that we have with each other, frenemies aside.
Which I noticed that Alice, Anne, and Mona are in your acknowledgments with your dog,
yes, they're my
Lady.
rocks.
Yes, I love that. Right there with Lady. Yeah, because that's the thing is that this is a wonderful community and and full of wonderful people, and of course there's always going to be
full of a lot of rejection, and you need your friends to
to buoy you up and cheer you on when the path gets too hard to continue.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, I just want to tell everyone, we have one more over there. Yeah, right. Can you, right down the middle with the striped shirt, waving to us. Oh, did you have, sorry. No, you first and then you. Yeah. You first and then you. So sorry. I didn't realize you had it.
Thank you. I don't want this question to be triggering at all. This is coming from a writer who's not yet published.
Okay.
So I'm interested in that you use Blackstone as a publisher and your thoughts on that and other independent publishers.
First of all, good luck with your writing. Hopefully you'll be here one day. I have worked in the big, I don't know, is it big five now? Big four? What, big three? I don't know, who cares? They're all together and I didn't realize you could get rejected by 12 people at Simon & Schuster, but I guess that's the thing now. There's multiple layers and layers of rejection. Okay, I get it. You don't want the book. But So the big houses, were used to be, as you know, the only game in town, and I worked there where most of us were always published there, and we got used to a certain kind of publishing. And then the more corporate intervention and corporate takeovers, the services there are just not that good. And everybody in the business, again, it's easy to complain about your publisher, but they are overworked, underpaid, and understaffed. It's insane. It was insane when I worked in it, and now it's worse. I don't know how people do it, especially during the pandemic and everything like that. So it's the big publishers are not all they're cracked up to be, and they are just only buying certain kinds of books that they feel they can really sell, and we could go on and on and on. So most people, myself included, have turned to independent houses. Blackstone is a predominantly audiobook publisher. They're wholly family owned. They're in Oregon. They print their own books. They print their own galleys. Are they perfect? No, not by any stretch, but none of them are. And they've been really, really lovely to deal with, and they let me have my jacket that I wanted. And so it's really, each publishing experience is very difficult now. I was just telling somebody that someone said I should add to my Zigman Freud services publication doula, because when you are leading up to a publication, again, you think like, oh, now you've written your book, you've sold it, and now you're publishing it. It's going to be great. No, So each part of the process is really challenging but worth it. But they're a great option for sure.
And we're gonna have the last question right there at the down the middle with the striped shirt over there. Yep. I think you're gonna have to lean.
Really excited to read your book.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you about your and your colleagues and fellow authors' take on AI and the threat that it's posing to original content, and how you feel about the use of AI in your own writing process, and if it's something you would embrace just to get like editorial perspective, and how you plan to kind of work with that.
Laura was just quoted in the Boston Globe about this, so perfect.
Did I swear? I don't think I swear. It's a really good question. I don't use it in my edit, and I use it, to check. I don't know what I use it for, but I don't use it in any way to write. I'm less concerned. I mean, we're our authors are all involved in that lawsuit because they have taken our books and fed them into the AI machine and are stealing our content, and they're going to throw us a couple grand here and there. It's just awful. But I'm less really concerned about AI for writing than I am about the world. And I think all you have to do is watch that interview with the guy from the New York Times asking the other guy, I think from Palantir, I don't know, it doesn't matter, Peter Thiel, if he thinks that the human race should continue. And all you have to do is watch that pregnant pause where Peter Thiel doesn't say yes. That's AI. And so I have it could be good, and I think there are some uses of it that are good, but for the most part, it's just not a good thing. And I don't think for writing and all that is good. I know some writer last week said that some literary writer said she uses it as part of her process, and oh boy, it was not a good thing, what happened. I forget who it was, but yeah.
Well, we are out of time. Time is flying when you're having a good time. We have books for sale. Laura will be signing outside, and I always say that signed books make the best gifts. So gift one for yourself and gift one for a loved one. You know who's never stressed at holiday time? This gal, because I shop ahead. So you've got to think, we've got the Jewish holidays this fall, we've got Christmas and Hanukkah coming up. Shop now so you're not stressed the rest of the year. Get a signed book, and you can make her say anything, to Sara, I'll never say where the body's buried. Love, Laura. I mean, she'll write anything. So get outside, buy books, and thank you so much for coming. We will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Sara.